I had dinner with Meghan Markle the other night. Well, she was at the same table. So I can't say, she wasn't my guest. I was a guest. We were both guests at a dinner party in California. And she had just gotten back from the palace. And I think I didn't talk to her really more than to say a couple words, but I know she was talking about it. If you're an actress, it's hard to then transition to a princess, and then from a princess into a homemaking guru on a television show. It doesn't sort of follow. So go from there.
There are some celebrity comments that disappear within a few hours. And then there are comments that make people stop, rewind, and ask, wait, did she really just say that? That is exactly what has happened after Martha Stewart spoke about Meghan Markle. And what makes this interesting isn't simply that Martha had something to say about Meghan. It's who Martha Stewart is. For decades, Martha has built an enormous reputation around cooking, entertaining, decorating, gardening, and homemaking. So when someone with that kind of resume starts questioning another celebrity's move into the lifestyle world, people naturally pay attention. But there is an important distinction here. Martha did not simply launch some massive public attack on Meghan. Her comments were more subtle than that. And that's actually what makes them so interesting. So today, we're going to break down exactly what happened, what Martha said, the controversy surrounding the dinner party story, and why Meghan's move into lifestyle television continues to attract so much attention. Let's start with the comment that got everyone talking. In a recent interview, Martha Stewart was asked about Meghan's move into lifestyle television, and Martha questioned the career progression. Her point essentially was, how does someone go from actress to princess and then into being a homemaking personality on television? Martha described that progression as something that doesn't naturally follow. And honestly, you can understand why that particular comment caught fire, because Meghan's career really has gone through several very different chapters. First, she was an actress. Then she became internationally famous as Prince Harry's girlfriend and eventually his wife. Then came her years as a working member of the British royal family. After Harry and Meghan stepped away from senior royal duties, they established themselves in California. And now Meghan is trying to build a new identity around food, entertaining, gardening, hosting, and lifestyle content. That is a huge career evolution. And Martha Stewart has spent decades building credibility in almost exactly that space. So when Martha raises an eyebrow at the transition, people immediately start comparing the two women. Now, this is where we need to be careful. It would be easy to turn Martha's comment into, Martha Stewart says Meghan is a fraud. But that's not what the reporting establishes. Martha's criticism is better understood as skepticism about the career transition and whether it makes sense to the audience. And that's a very different thing. You can question whether someone's career pivot feels natural without saying that person is incapable of doing the job. In fact, Martha has emphasized the importance of authenticity and actually knowing your subject matter. And that is probably why the comment has resonated with people. Because lifestyle television isn't just about putting beautiful food on a table. It's about having a recognizable identity. It's about experience. It's about credibility. And perhaps most importantly, it's about making viewers believe this person genuinely knows what they're doing. That's where Meghan faces a particularly difficult challenge. She isn't entering an empty market. She's entering a space where people already have their favorites. People have grown up watching chefs, decorators, gardeners, and homemaking experts. And Martha Stewart is one of the biggest names associated with that entire world. But things became even more interesting when Martha talked about a dinner party where she and Meghan were both present. According to reports, Martha said Meghan had recently returned from the UK. The trip itself was significant because Harry and Meghan had reportedly spent private time with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Martha suggested that Meghan spoke about the trip at the gathering. And that's where the story became much bigger, because suddenly, this wasn't only about Meghan's television career. It became a story about what Meghan allegedly discussed socially after a private royal meeting. Now here's the important part. That account has been disputed. A source associated with the dinner reportedly pushed back on Martha's description, saying that Martha's account was inaccurate, so we should not present it as an established fact that Meghan was gossiping about a private royal conversation. At this point, it's a disputed account, and that distinction matters, because there is a huge difference between saying, Martha says this happened, and saying, this definitely happened. We don't know enough to make the second statement. So, why has this become such a big story? I think there are several reasons. First, Meghan is already one of the most discussed women in the world. Anything involving Meghan, Harry, and the royal family tends to generate enormous attention. Second, Martha Stewart represents something very different. Martha isn't known primarily for royal drama. She's known for expertise. For decades, she has built a brand around teaching people how to cook, entertain, decorate, and create beautiful homes. So when she comments on Meghan's lifestyle ambitions, people naturally interpret it through that lens. And third, Meghan's Netflix series has made her lifestyle ambitions very visible. She isn't quietly experimenting with a new hobby. She's building a public brand around it. And that means the public gets to judge whether the new identity feels believable. And this brings us to perhaps the biggest question surrounding Meghan's new direction. Does the audience believe it? Because lifestyle brands depend heavily on personality. You can learn a recipe. You can learn how to arrange flowers. You can learn how to decorate a table. But viewers are also watching the person teaching them. They want to know, is this genuine? Does this person actually enjoy this?
Meghan, I don't really know very well, and I hope she knows what she's talking about. Authenticity to me is everything, and to be authentic and knowledgeable about your subject matter is extremely important.
Do they have something distinctive to offer? And that is where Meghan's royal history becomes both an advantage and a disadvantage. It's an advantage because she has enormous name recognition. Millions of people already know who she is. But it can also be a disadvantage because people don't necessarily associate Meghan primarily with cooking or homemaking. They associate her with Hollywood, with Prince Harry, with the British monarchy, with the Sussex story. So when she suddenly presents herself as a lifestyle personality, some viewers naturally ask, why this? And that appears to be close to the question Martha was raising. However, let's be fair. People are allowed to change careers, and celebrities reinvent themselves all the time. A former actress becoming a lifestyle host isn't impossible. There are countless examples of people who successfully moved from entertainment into completely different industries, and Meghan has every right to explore a different chapter of her life. In fact, there is something quite understandable about wanting to move away from royal drama and build something more personal. Cooking, gardening, hosting, family life, home projects. These are subjects that millions of people enjoy. So the question shouldn't necessarily be, does Meghan have permission to become a lifestyle personality? Of course she does. The more interesting question is, can she convince people that this is genuinely who she wants to be? That's a completely different challenge. And this is why Martha Stewart's comment has landed differently from criticism coming from an ordinary commentator. Martha doesn't need the royal family. She doesn't need Meghan Markle. She doesn't need Harry. She already has her own brand. She has decades of experience behind her. So when she says that Meghan's transition doesn't quite make sense to her, people hear it as the opinion of someone who actually spent a lifetime in the lifestyle industry. That doesn't automatically make Martha right, but it does make her perspective interesting. And there's another layer here. Martha herself has reinvented her image many times. She's been a businesswoman, author, television personality, entrepreneur, and cultural icon. So she understands better than most people what it takes to build a lifestyle brand. That makes her criticism worth examining, rather than simply dismissing, but perhaps the bigger issue isn't Martha Stewart at all. It's whether Meghan can establish a lifestyle coverage, her clothes, her interviews, her relationship with Harry, her children, her move to California, her Netflix projects. Even her lifestyle content gets discussed through the royal lens. That's a difficult position, because if she wants to become a lifestyle personality, eventually people need to stop asking, what does the royal family think?